Welcome to the daily news analysis by Narayana IS Academy. Today I have picked up 6 articles from The Hindu and Indian Express which I feel are very important for exam, and here we are going to discuss all of them in detail in a comprehensive manner. Now, before starting with our analysis, a key motivation for all of you. Your first mistake was thinking I was the weak. Usually what people do is they go ahead with doing something, but they lack confidence, they lack the hope or the optimism required for that act to be done. If you start with this thought that I am weak, then it is for sure that you are not going to get ahead with it. You will not get success in that particular activity, whatever it is. So this is your first mistake. If you're doing this, please do not make this mistake. Have this confidence that you can do it. Okay. Now, a key notification from Narayana IS Academy. Our admissions are open for 1 year as well as 2 year course. 1 year course which includes prelims cum mains integrated course for the 2026 batch, and 2 year course for the students who are going to attempt in the year of 2027. Now these courses are designed in such a manner that there will be total 1000+ hours of lectures, in which GS lectures will be somewhere around 800 hours, GS plus CSAT, and 200 hours of current affairs lectures. Also, if you go through the structure of this particular program or course, we have developed a strategic micro schedule. This micro schedule includes entire syllabus of UPSC, that too in a detailed way. We have strategically made it in such a manner that every dimension that can be asked in the examination is covered in this, and we'll be following this micro schedule throughout the course. Then we have the expert faculties, and you will be tested periodically. You will be giving so many tests that somewhere around more than 4000 prelims practice questions will be solved by you, more than 1000 mains practice questions will be solved by you, and those will be evaluated too. Also, as part of your study material, you will be getting 12 Navigator NCRT books, 21 GS Navigator books. You'll be getting access to many digital resources which will be available online. And then for the current affairs part, you will be getting this monthly Navigator magazine, wherein every article will be covering the issue in a comprehensive manner. So this is the course which you can go ahead with. Now, let's start with our discussion of daily news analysis. These are the 6 topics of the day. The first article is related to civil services. India's steel frame does need a check. So the article is talking about some kinds of reforms that are required in the civil services. Although the article has focused more on the IAS only. But in this discussion, we'll discuss in detail about entire civil service or bureaucracy. Second article is related to no detention policy by government. So recently central government has said that we are scrapping this policy for class 5th and class 8th. So we'll understand why this policy came and why now they are scrapping it. Then third article is related to Indian economy. So what is the current state of Indian economy? What are the positives? What are the negatives? That we'll understand. The fourth article is related to WTO. So a new term, that is GATTification, is being used regarding WTO. It is being said that WTO is now becoming GATT again. So GATTification, we'll understand that. Then fifth article is related to MFN status. So right now we are discussing this free trade agreement, in which whether this MFN issue will be an important part or not. So this is the article. And sixth article is related to critical minerals. India is very much dependent on the supply from China for the critical minerals. So these are the 6 most important articles of the day. Now let's start with our first article related to India's steel frame, that is civil services. Now in examination, civil service reforms becomes an important topic. So as part of your GS paper 2, role of civil services in a democracy, in this section you can be asked a question on this topic. Also in prelims you can expect a very easy topic wherein what is the role of civil servants in the policy making, or some its role can be asked directly. Now look at this previous year question. Initially, civil services in India were designed to achieve the goals of neutrality and effectiveness, which seems to be lacking in the present context. Do you agree with this view that drastic reforms are required in civil services? Please comment. So these drastic reforms, this is the core topic which was already asked in the year 2017. And such questions can also be repeated. So you should be prepared. Now, the article in the newspaper, that is the Hindu, it specifically talks about IAS, and they are saying that we need some reforms in the IAS. Now we are going beyond IAS and looking at entire civil services. Now first of all, when we say civil service, many students get confused with the term public service. See, public service is being done by almost everyone who is doing something really good, or who is even part of government, or even if they are not part of government. For example, a person serving in the military is also doing public service. A person who is a politician, he is also doing public service. A person who is part of an NGO is also doing something with regard to public service. But when we say civil service, it is very much specific. See, in the government, we have three different organs. One is the legislature, another is the executive, and third is the judiciary. Now, if we talk just about executive, this executive organ of the government is divided into two parts. One is the political executive, another one is the permanent executive or bureaucratic. So see, there will be two kinds of people in the executive. One is the political. So all these politicians who are getting elected and they become part of government, that is the chief minister or prime minister or other ministers, all are part of executive, but they are political executive, and they will be changed after few years. Let's say after 5 years, after the elections, they will be changed. But there will be some people who will be permanently there as part of executive. And when you look at these people, and if you remove the armed forces from it, then this entire permanent executive is termed as civil service. So you all are actually trying to become part of this permanent executive or civil service. And this chunk of people who are part of this permanent executive, this is very important. Why? Because this entire country is going to be governed by these people. So they are the main pillars of government. Most importantly, whenever any decision is being taken, whether by chief minister or prime minister, by any minister, that decision is based on the expert advice given by this bureaucracy. So their role is very important in governance. Then in case there is some kind of a conflict or some kind of a crisis, let's say suddenly we saw tsunami, suddenly there is an earthquake, or there is a pandemic like COVID-19. In such situations, the entire structure of this bureaucracy comes into picture, and their roles becomes very important in handling or managing such a crisis. Then you see, in India we have a uniform or a similar kind of administration throughout the country. That is possible because of this civil service, which is very much uniform throughout the country. And fourth is the socio-economic development. See, India as a country, or our constitution wants that our country should develop, our people should develop, they become empowered. So their social status should improve. Economically, they should become better. All these things are possible with the role of civil servants, because they play a key role in the policy making. Whatever policy is being made at the central level, at the state level, or whether it is being implemented, civil servants have a key role to play. That's why these are important. Now, let's understand the evolution of Indian civil services. So, it dates back to the colonial era, that is the British time period. So, in the year 1911, one system was introduced, that is Indian Civil Services, that is ICS. And at that point of time, their role was very much only reduced to checking the law and order situation and collecting the revenue. That's why the name for IAS officer many a times is district collector. The term collector is coming from their role which was there at the British time. So initially for the British government, the revenue had to be collected from the entire country. That task was given to this ICS. And see, there is a difference between the kind of state India was when we had British rule and the kind of state India is when we do not have British Raj, rather we have our own constitution. So when we had British Raj, we were having a police state. Police state means a state which just cares about law and order. They have nothing to do with your development, so there won't be any rights given to the citizens, or there won't be any care about the welfare of the citizens. Whereas when India got its independence and we implemented our own constitution, we rather became a welfare state rather than a police state. And welfare state says that the government has to take care of law and order, as well as government will have to take care of the development and welfare of its people. So government comes up with policies to help people come out of their problems. For example, to deal with poverty, unemployment, or some kind of social issues like untouchability. All these will be dealt by the government. And when we are saying government, obviously civil services is part of it. So in the colonial era, it was just restricted to law and order and revenue collection. But after independence, its role became development oriented. And right now, we are observing some new challenges coming up. Those challenges are with respect to the changing technology. And with the change of technology, we also need civil service to be using this technology. So, as part of our digital governance, we need civil services to be capable of handling all these issues. For example, if there is suddenly a cyber attack happening on India, in that case, this civil service has to play a key role. Then there can be some environmental issues because climate change is taking place, global warming is happening. Because of this, there can be some disasters, some environmental challenges which needs to be addressed. And again, the civil service is going to play a key role in this. Okay. Now moving ahead, let's look at some constitutional provisions related to civil servants in India, or civil services particularly. So these articles are important. You should know these articles. For example, Article 309. It clearly says that the regulation of recruitment or the conditions of service of civil servants in India will be either done by the president or governor. Then Article 310. It clearly says that a person who will be part of civil service will be there on the pleasure of president or governor. Means he or she will be serving till the time president or governor wants them to serve. Then Article 311. This is one of the most important articles I can say, because this provides some kind of immunity to the civil servants in India. It clearly says that there cannot be any arbitrary dismissal, removal, or reduction in the rank of a civil servant without a proper inquiry. So, if you are a civil servant, let's say you become IS officer, just because someone made some allegation against you, that doesn't mean you will be dismissed from the service or removed from the service. There has to be some proper inquiry. After that only the government can take such a decision to dismiss or remove you, or reduce your rank. Otherwise it is not possible. So it's a very strong article I can say. And then we have Article 312. This article says that government can create all India services, but that is possible only through a Rajya Sabha resolution, right? So these are the articles you should know. Now moving ahead, we are talking about the civil services, their role. So now, what kind of issues these civil servants or the entire civil service or bureaucracy is facing? What kind of key issues exist in this civil service? So there are some structural issues. The structure of the civil service has got some problems with it. For example, our bureaucracy is considered to be a generalist bureaucracy. Generalist, see, even you people are studying different subjects, but you are not a specialist of one subject, so you're a generalist person. But there is a debate going on that the governance requires some specialist rather than some generalists. For example, if you're heading health department, let's say you are going to make some policies with regard to health, ministry of health. Now you're not a specialist, you're not a doctor, or you're not a specialist of this field of health. You are a generalist, you are an IS officer. So it is being said that a specialist can rather make better policy than a generalist person. Now this is a debate, this is an evolving debate. Whereas the other side of the argument would be that civil services, the job of a civil service is to administer and make policy, and he or she should have a broad vision and broader understanding, which is multidimensional. So if a person is coming from a one particular stream, a specialist one, he cannot look at things in a broader way. So that is also a good argument. So we can say this is one of the structural issue with the civil service, that we have generalists, we do not have much specialist. At least this is a problem. Okay. Then right now, the rules and procedures followed by the bureaucracy are outdated. There are many laws which are existing since the time of Britishers, and those are continuing. And this bureaucracy follows all the rules just as they are mentioned. So sometimes these outdated rules are being followed. Then there is one problem of shortage of personnel. So in the civil services also you will find that there are some vacant seats which are to be filled, and because of this shortage, and it's not about just vacant seats. You see, we have 140 crore people living in India, and to serve them, to govern them, you have very less number of people as part of civil service. So there is shortage. And the fourth structural issue is the resistance from the bureaucracy. These bureaucrats are not ready to change. See, with the changing time, you need to adapt, you need to change, but you will find some resistance from them. For example, if we talk about the issue of lateral entry, that nowadays it is being said that we should introduce some specialists in the bureaucracy at the top level, and this is called as lateral entry. When this discussion started, suddenly many IS officer or many bureaucrats, they started resisting this idea. So we have this issue wherein we observe that the bureaucracy has become passive as well as become resistant. Okay. Then there are some problems related to promotions. So in Indian civil service, promotions take place on the seniority basis. Now, this is a concerning thing, that if a person knows that anyway, if he becomes senior, he'll be promoted, and he's not being judged on the basis of his performance, on the basis of his merit, then why would he put all his efforts and work really hard? So, this is a question being raised. Then, accountability and transparency. Let's say you're going to get some appraisal, but is the system transparent enough to check whether you deserve to get the appraisal or not? Whether your performance is getting evaluated in the right manner or not? Or whether just because you have good relations with a politician or your seniors, you're getting the appraisal? Right? So this is one of the systemic issue wherein we do not have a very strong appraisal system which is transparent and where accountability can be ensured. Then we do not have a very strong whistleblower protection system. So if there is a person who is finding that there is some issue in the bureaucracy, let's say he saw that there is corruption going on in the ministry or something, that person, if comes out and tells about these things, is he getting the strong protection from the government or the law? That is the question. So whistleblower protection is required. There are laws related to it, but it is not strong enough, it is not robust enough. Then there are some ethical concerns, And this is one of the major concerns with respect to bureaucracy, that although bureaucrats get into service by really going ahead with a tough phase of UPSC recruitment examination, but after getting into service, they show that their character is not that good. They solve the GS4 paper, that is the ethics paper, but still they become unethical. So we have heard many cases of corruption, nepotism from the bureaucracy. Even there is this VIP culture existing in bureaucracy. For example, this Tyagaraja Stadium case was very famous, wherein the stadium was opened and an officer went there with his dog, and the athletes who were supposed to practice in the stadium, they were not allowed to get into the stadium, rather the dog was allowed. So this kind of VIP culture exists in India, and this is ethically incorrect. This is very much concern. Then we have political interference, wherein we observe this frequent transfers taking place. There are many IS officers who are renowned for this thing, that they get transferred as soon as they get in conflict with any politician or any mafia, or they go ahead with good actions, still they are transferred, and there is interference from the politician's side. And many a times we have observed some officers, some civil servants, they become loyal towards a political party. Let's say there is a party who is in power right now. So there will be some civil servants who will become loyal towards them. Now, this is completely against the values of civil services. The value which was supposed to be there, that was non-partisanship. That means you will not be loyal towards one party or one community, but they are not showing that. This is a major ethical concern, I would say. Then there are some issues related to the capacity building also. For example, the training that is required for civil servants, they are not getting the enough training. For example, right now digital governance we are seeing. Are the civil servants getting enough training? No. Then the work culture part. The work culture includes some phenomena such as this red tapeism. That means one file gets starts from one location and reaches to other. It keeps on going from one place to another, and it doesn't get passed. So in India, it is very much common with respect to bureaucracy that if you reach to a government office to get something done, the file will keep on getting relocated from one place to another, and your issue will not be sorted unless you provide them with some amount of money or you go ahead with corruption. So this red tapeism, corruption, this is very common. Many a times the decisions are very much delayed in the bureaucracy. That's why we call it bureaucratic delay. And when it comes to crisis, if there is a big crisis in front of you, and if you're going ahead with those procedural delays, just because in the rule book it is mentioned that you need this document, you need to take this action, because of which you're not addressing the immediate problem, then this makes the entire system inefficient. Right? Every time you can't completely follow the rules, sometimes you have to stop those procedural delays. So all these are issues which we have discussed. You should know each of this. And now, as a solution, you will be giving in the answer the solution for all these issues. Already there are some committees who have given some recommendations from their side. For example, we have this Surinder Nath committee of 2003. They said that the appraisal system should be very transparent. We should first establish such a system. Then we have Hota committee of 2004. They said merit based promotions should be promoted rather than just seniority based. Then we have second ARC, that is Administrative Reforms Commission. They have given in detail recommendations regarding the reforms required in civil services. So for example, few of the reforms include a periodic performance review for the accountability. So periodically, after a few days or few years, you should check the performance of all the civil servants to check their accountability. Then we have generalist, we need specialist also. One of the way could be that after 13 years of service, a person could be allocated a particular branch or particular stream wherein he can show his specialization. So this can be done. Then e-governance should be promoted, and for that the entire structure of civil service should be modernized. Whatever infrastructure they need, it should be provided. They need training, that should be provided through workshops or some training programs. Then lateral entry, this idea was clearly suggested by second ARC that we should go ahead with some kind of lateral entry, and there should be some stability of tenure for civil servants. We said that they are frequently transferred. Many times a civil servant gets into a district, within few months he gets an order for transfer. So there should be some fixed tenure for civil servants. And for that, civil services boards should be established. This is what second ARC said. Such boards are established at center as well as state level, and they play a key role in the transfer and posting. Then there is this Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs, which was chaired by Shashi Tharoor in the year 2016. He said that we have this IFS service, Indian Foreign Service. What we can do is we can allow NRIs, non-resident Indians, to join this Indian Foreign Service. They will be coming up with their experience because they are exposed to the foreign countries, so they can give a good service over here. So all these are recommendations given by these committees or commissions. Now we'll understand what all the government has done till now, what all reforms the government has already carried out. So one of the reform is 360-degree appraisal system. So it was introduced in the year 2015, when government said that we are going to check your performance but from a 360-degree angle. It's not like your senior will only tell what you did. Rather, we'll check your performance from all different angles. We'll check your performance from your juniors also, your colleagues also, your seniors also. Everything will be checked. Then government brought new cadre policy in the year 2017, so that national integration can be brought in. So the cadre policy says that you will not be getting just one particular state. Different officers are allocated to different states. It's not like you will get your home state as the cadre. You can get different states. And this exposes you to different regions of India. And that's why we say national integration is taking place. Then we have lateral entry. So in 2018, government had gone for this lateral entry. They introduced some people in the bureaucracy at the top level from private sector. Then forced retirement of corrupt and inefficient officers. So government has taken some actions against some officers who were supposed to be inefficient or who were corrupt officials. So for example, in the year 2016, 33 IRS officers from the Ministry of Finance, they were provided with this forced retirement. They had to retire forcefully. Then in the year 2020, government introduced Mission Karmayogi. Now this is an important scheme from government side. Now government wants that, we don't want that rule based civil service. We want a new civil service because the time is changing, technology is changing. This civil service needs to be adapting these new technologies and should become enable the entire system. Rather than just taking over power or controlling the power, they should enable people to become empowered. And last is this increase in transparency with RTI Act. We brought this Right to Information Act, under which you or me can directly go and request government to give us details about what they have done. So when you file an RTI, a bureaucrat sitting over there has to respond what work he has done. So this has brought some transparency as well as some accountability from governance side or from this civil servant side. Okay. Now, what all reforms are pending? These were the reforms which were already carried out. Now there are many reforms which are still pending and government needs to address them. For example, we talked about this domain specialization after 13 years, that is yet to be done. Then we said that civil service boards should be there. The boards are established, but the boards are not very strong. Many a times state governments do not listen to this or do not take care of the advice given by civil service boards. They needs to be made stronger. Then performance based promotions, this is yet to come. Then as far as this accountability and transparency is concerned, periodic reviews, let's say after 14 years or 20 years, that has to take place. Whistleblower protection, this has to be strengthened. Then as far as ethical part is concerned, because we are observing so many cases of unethical conduct by civil servants, many in their initial phase, as soon as they get into civil service, they start behaving that way. For example, the Pooja Khedkar case we saw. So this shows that some kind of code of conduct is required, and this VIP culture has to be curbed completely. This is yet to be addressed. Then, as far as digital governance is concerned, as far as the infrastructure for the digital governance is required, all this has to be provided by government. Although it's a work in transition, it is going on, but still, this is required. And then, at last, some recruitment reforms are also required. For example, we can lower down the entry age for the civil servants so that we can actually capture the young talents in India, and we can go ahead with some psychometric testing. See, this is being considered especially to check the ethical standard of a civil servant, because we are taking the GS4 ethics paper in mains, but still we are not in a position to check whether the person is ethical or unethical. So psychometric test could be one additional layer to check the thoughts of the person. So all these are the reforms that are yet to be taken. So let me check if you have any doubts in the comments. Yes, good evening. Yugal Patil, Prashant Kumar, Hima Bindu. Interesting topics. Yes, interesting. Okay, so we are done with the first topic. Now let's move ahead with the second topic of the day, that is related to World Trade Organization, and we're talking about GATTification. Now this is important from economy perspective. Look at this previous year question which is directly related to World Trade Organization. So such questions can be expected in the examination. Okay. Now moving ahead. What is happening right now is GATTification. But to understand what is GATTification, you have to understand what do you mean by GATT. So the long form of GATT is General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. Now please understand, in the entire world, we do not have any government which is for the world. That is, world government is not existing. We have governments at the national level. But now let's say there is a trade happening between India's any state, between Kerala and Karnataka. Central government will play some key role to ensure that the trade happens in a right manner. But when it comes to international trade, we don't have any world government. So sometimes things become very complicated. There are no fixed rules. A strong country might come up with its own rules. So it was being thought that to serve international trade, there should be international trade, and there should not be any trade barrier brought by other countries to have a really good trade in the entire world. The idea of GATT came into picture. So this idea came in the year 1947. That was after the World War II. So we saw World War II. That was a devastating event, and the entire world was suffering because of it. And after that, it was very much important for the world to recover. And one of the best way to recover was to have a better trade, a smooth trade. So at that time, total 23 countries initially came up and started this general agreement on tariffs and trade. Now, it was just an agreement. It is not an organization. GATT was a provisional agreement and not a formal organization as such, like UN or WTO as such. It was an agreement, and it was expected that after few months or few years, we will bring in an organization. We will construct or establish an organization. The name of that organization was supposed to be International Trade Organization. But in reality, it never actually happened. This ITO never got materialized. So this was the idea of GATT in the year 1947. Now, to bring in this ITO, many efforts were being made. So you will see there were many rounds of talks being held from 1947 till the year 1995. For example, we have in the year 1960-61 Dillon round, in 64 to 67 Kennedy round, 73 to 79 Tokyo round, then 1986 to 1994 Uruguay round. Now this, when we say round, it means people or representatives from different countries are coming together, sitting together and negotiating what can we do about this trade. So such talks were held, and after so many talks, after this Uruguay round specifically, we came up with the idea of WTO, World Trade Organization, in the year 1995. So there was an agreement called Marrakesh Agreement in the year 1995 that was signed by almost 166 countries. Almost means some members joined later on, but right now there are total 166 countries who are part of World Trade Organization, and now it's an organization, a formal organization, and not a normal agreement as such. So it's an organization which is supposed to take care of the international trade. So let's say a trade is happening between India and China, or China and Afghanistan, or Afghanistan and America. Any such trade will have to follow some rules or some regulations, and those rules are made by World Trade Organization, and everyone will have to accept it because they are members of this World Trade Organization. So because of World Trade Organization, what will happen? A strong country cannot come up with its own rule. Rather, even the strong country will have to follow the rules made by World Trade Organization. So whether it is USA or Russia or China or India, all will follow the rules made by this organization. So some kind of governance at the world level is taking place since this World Trade Organization came into picture. Now look at the kind of organizational structure we have with respect to World Trade Organization. So if you look at WTO, at the top level, there will be ministerial conference. So ministerial conference is the highest decision making body. Any decision that will be taken will be done by this ministerial conference, and usually this conference takes place once in 2 years. There is no fixed timeline as such, but usually it happens. Okay. Then there is one body called dispute settlement body. Let's say there is a dispute between India and USA on a particular issue of trade. So that issue has to be solved at WTO. So there is this body called dispute settlement body which will take care of it. And any decision they will make, it will be binding on these countries. And in case you don't like the decision made by this dispute settlement body, you can go ahead with appeal. So we have this appellate body also. And in this appellate body, there are 7 permanent members. Now this is very important. These members are getting from different countries. They are representing the entire WTO. But what I want you to understand is this body right now is facing some problem right now. Since 1995 it is working, but it's facing a problem wherein USA is not allowing this appellate body to work. So that appellate body, which consists of 7 members, they are supposed to be appointed there. But the appointment of the members is being stopped by USA, because of which appellate body is not working. Because of which, in case there is a dispute between USA and India, they go to this dispute settlement body, but then they don't like the decision made by the dispute settlement body. Then they say we'll go to appellate body. Until the time appellate body does not give any kind of solution, that issue does not get resolved. It will continue as it is, and people are liking it. Especially USA is liking it. That let the appellate body not work. We'll do whatever we want to. So such is the condition right now. So we are saying what is happening right now is WTO is GATTifying. or GATTification is taking place. So one idea to look at WTO is to understand the neoliberal world order. See, since the time of 1990, we see the entire world has got one superpower in the form of USA. Earlier we had USA, USSR, but from 1990 onwards we have just one superpower, that is USA. And this neoliberal world order was established with the support of USA. So even in India we saw LPG reforms and all. So after that we saw the role of WTO became very crucial. Everyone became part of the same system. And this WTO was working really good with the support of USA. And right now the same USA is not allowing it to work. So since the year 2019 it has weakened this dispute settlement body. And when we look at such an organization where all the countries are involved, we call it multilateral organization. And multilateralism was getting promoted. But right now it is not happening. Right now it is in decline to a good extent. And what countries are doing? They're not ready to follow the rules or laws made by any international body, right? That is WTO. They want their own rules. And what they will do is they'll go for political negotiations. For example, USA and India may negotiate what will be the tariffs, what will be the tax on imports and exports, rather than they'll listen to this rules made by the WTO. So this kind of power politics is happening right now. The focus is on diplomacy, the focus is on political negotiations rather than the legal resolution of the issue. So this is what is exactly happening right now. Okay, now let me check if there are any doubts. No doubts? Okay. So we'll take just 10 seconds break before we start with the third article. Yes. So the third article is related to the trend in the Indian economy. And you should know about such trends because if you see the previous year questions, they directly ask the trend that is going on. For example, the growth rate of GDP has steadily increased in the last 5 years. Now you should understand what's the trend right now going on. Okay. So if you look at the trend of Indian economy in the year by the year 2025, which is about to come now, it is a mixture of positive and negative things. This mixture shows that if you look at the long term trend, it is showing a positive trend. But on a short term basis, it is showing that Indian economy is struggling from some issues, some concerns. So let's understand this mixed picture in detail. First of all, the positive sides, what's good that is happening. So we are observing that right now 6.5% is said to be the GDP growth of India in the financial year 2024 to 25. Right? It's a good rate. See, 6.5% is not bad. And it is being said that we are now recovering from what had happened with us with COVID-19 pandemic. So COVID-19, before COVID-19, India's economy was in a good condition. But because of COVID-19, we saw a decline and now we are recovering and now we are coming back to the situation which was there before COVID-19, which is a good thing. So this shows we have a very good growth trajectory. Second, government's fiscal push. So government is spending substantial amount of money, especially after the elections. So they are putting their money in investing their money in infrastructure building, in capacity building, and that is a good thing because when you invest money on infrastructure, then that will be a good push for the economic growth. Now recently, even what RBI had did was reduce this CRR. When they reduce CRR, what happens is the money that is available with the commercial banks, that will be more because CRR is reduced. So they will be having more money available, which they can provide to customers or the consumers like all of us as a loan. So more loan can be disbursed. And that means when more loan can be disbursed, that simply means many businessmen will make use of this opportunity to set up their business or invest for the growth. So overall, there will be growth because of government's fiscal push or fiscal spending and reduce CRR. Then we have our MSME sector, which is considered to be very important for our GDP, for our exports, and for our jobs. Many people work in this MSME sector, and this MSME sector has faced many challenges since last few years. Specifically, first they were shocked by the COVID-19. They were affected very badly. Before that, it is not like just COVID-19 which hampered them. Before that, government has implemented this GST. Now, GST is a good reform, but that GST had impacted very badly to this MSME sector who lacks the enough resources or funds. And before that, there was this demonetization done by government that had also affected them. So if you see the logical sequence, first demonetization, then GST, then COVID-19, continuously the MSME sector was getting some shocks. And it is the right time to say that right now this MSME sector is getting out from all these setbacks. It is actually recovering. So right now the condition is relatively better. Now if you see the periodic labor force survey, it shows that the salaried employment is actually increasing in India. Especially they talked about the female participation also, and that too in rural area, that females who are participating in the employment or some kind of labor activities, they are more in the rural area rather than urban area. So rural area is showing good trend. So all this shows we are doing good. Then service sector. Right now the industry which is actually leading the service sector, it is this IT industry. So there's a boom, it's working really good. And now we have this remote work culture or work from home, because of which also this sector is getting a good kind of boom. For example, during COVID-19, many sectors were affected, but this sector was working because of this remote work culture. So we are seeing service sector is actually leading our growth. Okay. Then we have a good news from the central government side. If you see the fiscal deficit, then it is somewhere around 5.9%. If you see the complete debt of what we call it as public debt, it is somewhere around 83% of GDP. All these numbers are showing us that to good extent we are going in the right direction as far as our economies or economic growth is concerned. But now let's see some negative angles. What's going wrong? So, for example, in this financial year of 2025, if you see the quarter two, the growth is somewhere around 5.4%. Now, if your growth data is changing or fluctuating, then you cannot maintain a right trajectory. So that is a problem. So we have some cyclical problems. We are observing some kind of slowdown within our different quarters. Then we are observing food inflation right now, and there is somewhere around double digit inflation. The prices of food items are getting very high, and it is not a good thing for our economy. If it continues for a long time, it's not a good thing for our economy, because if it is very high, people in India will spend most of their money buying the food items. Then what will happen? The overall demand in the market will get reduced because people will not have enough money to spend on other products. So that is not a good sign. Then if you look at the private investment in India, it is somewhere low. See, in India we have the demand in urban area which is relatively weak in recent times. And the tax laws in India are very complex, because of which we are observing to this private investment, it is not at a good condition as such. Then you look at the savings that is there with all the households in India. It is somewhere around 5.3% of GDP. See, all these numbers are not important for you, but to understand what is happening, We have provided this data. So household saving 5.3%, which is not good. Okay, then stagnation in the credit growth. People do not want to get more loans. It's not a good sign, but this shows that people are lacking the appetite for loans. When they take loans, then they will set up a business or spend the money which will run the economy, but this is not happening. And at the state level, the state governments are coming up with some populist policies wherein they are transferring money directly in the hands of people. And this is not a good sign again, because that will lead to some kind of inflation in the country. So overall, these are the hurdles the economy is facing right now. We all should know this trend. Clear? Now, these are some of the concerns of economy overall right now. One is, in case we are not in a position to have a stable growth, and that to a growth rate which is higher, then it is not a good thing for India. Let's say even if we have 6% growth, it is not sufficient for us. It's not like we are very ambitious in the world. We are ambitious because we have to, because we have so many people who require jobs, right? So we want 8 million jobs annually. Every year we want that. And to have that, we need a growth rate which is higher than the 6%. We need 8%, 9%, even 10%. We cannot have less than that. That is very much dangerous for us. Then our service sector, which is booming right now, it is because of IT. But this IT industry can face some problem due to changing technology. For example, due to artificial intelligence, or new technologies are coming up, because of which this sector can get disrupted, and that will be a dangerous thing again. And the third issue is related to urban rural divide, wherein in rural area we say that female labor force participation is more, and in rural urban area it is less. So this is not a good sign again. Okay, so these are the things we need to address. These are the things where government needs to work. Clear? Now the fourth article is related to central government's decision to scrap no detention policy. Now this is important for you for prelims as well as mains GS paper 2. You can read this mains question. Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009 remains inadequate in promoting incentive-based system for children's education without generating awareness about the importance of schooling. Analyze. Now, to answer such questions, you should have brief idea about such acts, right? So let's understand what has happened. So earlier there was a policy called no detention policy. What does it mean? That in case a child is studying in the 5th standard and he does not get enough marks to pass the examination, the end examination, still he will be going in the next class, that is in the 6th standard. He'll be promoted in that standard even if he is not getting enough marks which are required to pass that examination. This is the no detention policy simply. So this policy was actually introduced as this act came into picture. So in the year 2009 we brought this Right to Education Act. And that act clearly mentioned that in India we will have no detention policy. So those children who are studying till the 8th standard, till that standard which is called as elementary education, that has to be free and compulsory. So any school will not be detaining any child before 8th standard. It has to continue. And why government brought such an act? Because we have a provision made in the constitution itself. In constitution we have article 21A. If you read this article, it talks about the education, wherein the state shall provide free and compulsory education to all children of the age of 6 to 14 years in such a manner as state may by law determine. So the fundamental right under Article 21A clearly says that in this age group, whichever child is there, you have to provide them free and compulsory education. So when you have to provide that, you need to have some kind of a policy which they brought using this act. And the idea to bring this no detention policy was that traditionally we do not have a good educational system. We are just punishing students. So it was decided that we will have a continuous and comprehensive evaluation, holistic evaluation of children. But what happened interestingly was, after bringing this amendment, or this after bringing this act, after bringing this no detention policy, after few years, many state governments reached out to center saying that we don't want this kind of a policy. So for example, you see, in the year 2017, Union Cabinet got demand from total 24 states that you should scrap this entire policy of no detention. So there are different arguments. Some states will be saying that it is not actually helping. There should be some mechanism wherein students will feel motivated to study. They'll be motivated only if there will be an examination. So such arguments were being made. And initially government thought that because we want more students to get admissions, they should not get dropout, they should get education at least till 8th standard. They brought this no detention policy. But reversal took place. So in the year 2019, government made an amendment in the same act and removed this provision of no detention policy. Okay. So what recently the government has done? So government has brought the rules regarding the same thing of scrapping this no detention policy, and it says that in case a student gets failed in the exam, in that case re-exam will be taken within 2 months, and the school has to take care of it. The head of the school will take care of it, and if the student fails in that exam too, then he will be detained. But detention does not mean you are going to remove that child from the school. The child will not be expelled from the school till the 8th standard. So it is the responsibility of the school to take care of that child. So this is the key provision, and the arguments will be there to and fro. Now these are the four articles which we have covered. Two more articles are there which we had already covered in our daily news analysis. For example, this MFN not to hit India EFTA Pact. So we had covered this here. Switzerland suspend most favored nation treatment for India. So what is MFN status and all? We covered that in the daily news analysis of 14 December, and you will get the link of this article or this daily news analysis in the comment box. Then another article, India's reliance on China for critical minerals. So what are critical minerals? Our dependence on China. Everything is covered in this mineral diplomacy of India, covered on 16th December. That too, you will get the link in the comment box and you can watch. Clear? Now the time for practice questions. So the first one is the mains practice question. India's civil services, often referred to as the steel frame. How can structural, ethical, and functional reforms rejuvenate the steel frame to meet the demands of modern administration? Now, please think about it. Brainstorm. I'll tell you the answer, but just brainstorm for at least 5-10 seconds. Yes. Now, simply, when they have asked about Indian civil service and the reforms required, you will introduce the answer with the importance of Indian civil service. You can call them steel frame, or you can give the context of the problems being faced by this civil service in the present times. Then tell all those reforms which are required. So first they asked about structural reforms. So talk about this domain expertise we can bring in, promotion policy, tenure stability, the recruitment lower age, or the psychometric test which we discussed. All this can be made as part of structural reform. Then ethical reform is required to bring some code of conduct to curb this VIP culture, to remove this corruption, bring in accountability. You can mention that government has brought this mission Karma Yogi, etc. etc. And functional reforms. So, for example, it's related to e governance or reducing this red tapeism, then lateral entry, all these can be mentioned. And eventually, you can conclude that all these reforms are required if we want a bureaucracy which is citizen centric, which is dynamic, and which is very robust. So this is how you can answer it. Now, some prelims practice questions. Now these are the questions from the yesterday's article. So with reference to assisted reproductive technology regulation 2021, consider the following statements. ART services can only be provided by clinics that are registered with the National Registry under ICMR. That's true. Unless you are registered, how can you do that? A woman can donate oocytes more than once. This is wrong. It is not more than once. It is once only. With no restriction on the number of oocytes retrieved. Now this is also wrong. It is 7 times at max, 7 number. So second statement is wrong. Only A is the right answer. Next question, India's Advanced Technology Vessel ATV project. Consider the following statement. ATV project aims to develop a fleet of indigenous nuclear powered ballistic missile submarines. 100% true. INS Arihant, commissioned in 2016, was India's first SSBN developed under the ATV project. That is also true. After Arihant came the Arighat. So this is right. INS Sridharan, an advanced SSBN with longer missile range, has already been commissioned under ATV project. This is wrong. This INS Sridharan is yet to come. So this will be the right answer of 1 and 2A. With reference to telecommunications procedures and safeguards for lawful interception of messages rules 2024, consider the following statements. The rules allow the head or senior most officer of authorized agencies to issue interception orders in remote area under specific conditions. Now this is factually correct. Interception orders must be confirmed by the competent authority within 7 working days, otherwise interception must cease. That is also logically correct. And the rules mandate the destruction of records related to interception every 6 months, even if required for court proceeding. Now, even if you haven't read the article, you can use your logical mind to say that this statement is wrong. How can you stop court from proceeding? So this is true that for 6 months, after 6 months, you are going to destroy those records. But if the court gives some directions, then you will not do that. There will be some exception. Third statement is wrong. So A, 1 and 2 is the right answer. Now these questions for today's articles, these are your homework. You'll be getting a link in the comment box. You can directly reach out to our website wherein you will be attempting these questions. Just click on the link and attempt all these questions on the website. First question is related to the GATT. GATT was created in 1947 as a multilateral treaty signed by 23 countries including India after World War II. Right? GATT was a formal organization that regulated global trade until it was replaced by WTO. And the primary objective of GATT was to promote international trade by reducing tariffs and other trade barriers. I will say very easy question which you can attempt. Okay. Then second question is related to the state of Indian economy. This is a trend based question, very similar to the previous year question we had. I would say please attempt. It's a moderate level question, not very tough because you have seen the article. So please attempt this. And the last, what is the position of the right to education in India? Legal right, fundamental right, neither fundamental nor legal. Very easy question if you have seen the lecture. Okay, so these are the questions. These are the homework for you. You'll get the answers on in the next session of daily news analysis. Okay, so thank you so much for joining. We'll meet in the next session.